No, no, I loved it. I was always because I loved sports, and so the idea of going to a senior school is Washwood Heath Comprehensive School. The idea of going to that school was extraordinary because they had massive playing fields back in the day, and enormous resources. As I saw it then, it was quite a new building, and it looked very, very impressive, and it felt like I was entering into a much bigger world. So I was incredibly excited about that. The only slight negative about that was that my brother was very ambitious for me, and he wanted me to take the entrance exam for grammar schools. And I mean, the junior school I was at didn't provide any preparation for these things, as other schools did in the area. So the day before the 11 plus, he kept me home, and we did a bit of revision. And I went in the following day, did my 11 plus. And then when I was asked by the school where I was, I answered honestly that I'd just taken the day off and I was working and preparing. And the teacher, in his wisdom, decided to inform the exam board, and my paper was withdrawn from being marked because I'd taken one day off. So and I thought the exam had gone very well, and I thought that that's what I was going to go, grammar school, and it would have been a very different phase of my life if I'd gone there. So that, and I knew it was unjust. I knew there was an injustice there. So going into secondary school, I kind of went in with a little bit of a sense of, well, I failed here. There's some sort of failure associated with this space. But very quickly, once I was there, it was I loved it. I was exposed to the broadest possible ranges of young people, and the teachers were extraordinary and real. It was a very vibrant place. Not in a performance sense at all. I don't remember there being any opportunity to. I don't think they really had a drama department at all. They didn't even have a drama teacher. It was all done through English. But I did have two really influential teachers there. I mean, particularly one, the head of department, called Mr. Reader. And I'm not sure that he even knew I existed, but I thought he was extraordinary. He was a Liverpudlian and read the Pride and Prejudice to us and acted it out, and was so charismatic, so brilliant. And again, Macbeth. Read it said, and he asked us, I remember, to do like a front page. So the day after, the morning after Duncan's been murdered, what would the papers look like? And I spent a week learning calligraphy and having this massive paper, like A3 size, and doing all the various stories on the front page, and eventually handing it in as a scroll with a ribbon, etc., and awaiting my mark for it, and then he ran away with one of the other teachers. So I never got I never got a mark for it, and I never got the object back. I never got it back. But yeah, no, there was so there was a lot of excitement through the teachers that I encountered there around English, and my brother had introduced. Had put books in front of me. So before I went there, I was already reading Dickens, and I didn't know that it was wrong or maybe inappropriate to take little Dorrit into school and read it in the breaks. And so I would take this massive book and I would open it up and read it. And my teachers loved that, and they really encouraged that, and they would kind of use me as an example to the other people. And I think because I was good at sports, I was kind of allowed to get away with it, whereas I think anybody else might have encountered quite a lot of bullying because of that. No, I mean, quite the opposite. I went through a phase, maybe when I was in the middle years, sort of 13, 14, where I started to truant, where I just discovered how exciting it was to break the rules and to disappear, as it were, into different things, and I did all kinds of naughty things, and kind of stopped trying to be impressive in an academic context or in the school context, and just enjoyed just disappearing off the grid. So there was a kind of a lot of excitement around that, but it wasn't really going anywhere. And when my brother discovered, and the school communicated to home that I wasn't turning up at school, my brother kind of grabbed me and said, "You've taken your maths O level a year early," and so he kind of really forced me to kind of focus. But he even though he was a teenager himself, so he was well, maybe early 20s, but he was working it out himself, improvising. But he was a brilliant teacher. So even though I resented having to take my O-level maths a year early, it was very exciting, and it was brilliant to be able to do it and to do so well in it, and to sort of lock me back into school again and lock me back into achieving in school. I was strong across the board, but in terms of how I thought of my career, it was the sciences. It was theoretical physics, actually, or a professional cricket career. I applied for the entrance exam to the King Edward's Independent School in Birmingham, where I would have been joining, where I was applying for the maths cohort. So it's maths, further maths, physics, general studies, and then later on I did English as well. But that was later in a break in my university career. No, quite the opposite. It was awful. It's an enormous shock to my system, because I was certainly entering into an environment where it was just boys. That's one thing, but also the kind of people, the kind of young people I was encountering were very loud, very sure of themselves, and it was a very kind of pugilistic, competitive environment, and I didn't see the need to communicate in that way, and didn't feel like I kind of had the right to compete. But there was one of my only friends there was another young black boy who happened also to be a fantastic musician and pianist, and through him I realized what extraordinary resources that place had, and I was able with him to go to London to see the very first live concert that I'd ever seen, Tchaikovsky's first piano concerto, and that was just extraordinary. So I had artistic conversations with him that I hadn't had outside of my family, and those were very exciting. But no, it was very, very challenging. Yeah. No, it was always. I mean, it was, if anything, when I was struggling in the first year at King Edward's, the only reason why they were interested in keeping me on was because of my cricketing abilities. But I was able to sort of focus in, and but actually all the time while I was struggling at school and struggling with my sense of self-worth and succeeding academically, the way I would cope with it would be to go home and to read and to see great films and the plays on TV. I mean, that they were an amazing consolation to me. I wouldn't have used that word then, but they were absolutely the sciences, and also like the political environment of the university. So my brother was very keen that I applied to Cambridge. And he was very keen that I applied to King's College because Salman Rushdie had been there, and it was sort of perceived as being a more left-leaning college. And when he told the headmaster this, the headmaster laughed and said, "No, I don't think that's appropriate for Iqbal. I mean, going to Cambridge at all." And when my brother came back and told me this, I kind of secretly heaved a sigh of relief, thinking that life might be a little bit easier in the future. And my brother went, "No, I think we should apply to Trinity College, Cambridge, which is the best place in the world for maths." And he really tried to motivate me to challenge that perception of my possibilities. And I was remarkably able to get what was required, and I did go to Trinity. But by the skin of my teeth. I mean, I got very good A levels, and I passed the entrance examinations. But I really did feel I was holding on, and like somehow had sort of snuck in the back door into Trinity. So I didn't feel like it was a part of my destiny or I'd earned it. And the minute I got there, it was an extraordinary place, but I certainly didn't feel easy there, or that I belonged there. I mean, again, the cricket was always something that was impressive and allowed me to kind of feel like that people were interested and needed me there. No, I did actually. I did. I mean, I wasn't attending very many lectures, so I spent a lot more time reading, listening to opera a lot, and going to see whatever concerts were on in the colleges, and whatever kind of amateur theatre, or the student theatre that was going on. But again, I mean, there was an issue with going into theatres then, rather like going into the buildings, these palaces of learning. I felt uncomfortable about being in those communities who were attending these events. So I loved them, but actually being visible there was always a bit of a struggle. I think both. For me, they were one and the same. I mean, I saw. I was friends with Asians and people of color there, who came from very, very different backgrounds, and so I had a paradigm of the person of color who did belong, and that was certainly not me. So I think a bit of both. A lot of both. And remember, there was nobody, or very few people who I saw working in those industries that reflected that I belonged in that industry, or even in those audiences. Actually, that might indicate that this was a space where I was welcome. No, which is why I think I struggled, because he wasn't there anymore, so I had to find those resources in myself, and I struggled very badly to begin with for a while, and ultimately, I suppose, that's where I discovered I needed to do, which is that I needed to find that strength, that sense of value for myself, not by reference to him. But that took a while, and I went back to Birmingham for a while. I decided, because I wanted to, because it was the only thing that made me feel happy, to do an English A level, to sort of surround myself in those worlds and words, and did very well. And actually considered, when going back to university, considered changing my degree to English. But because I started, my brother suggested that it would be a waste to not complete. But when I went back to university, I got the offer of a physics degree at Imperial College in London, which is a great place to do physics in the world. But going in at the second year, and it was there that I discovered theatre as a performer.